Toronto is a tough real estate market at times. Depending on your budget, it could always be tough. There are certain price points that we've noticed that just haven't seemed to falter all that much. So it certainly depends. Toronto can be a tough place to be a first-time buyer. Now, one of my specialties, due to my teaching background, is working with first-time buyers because there tends to be quite a bit of education involved and, for lack of a better word, kind of guidance, maybe a little bit of hand-holding. In this video, I want to give you 6 tips to help you navigate the market and ease the stress of being a first-time buyer in Toronto. So the first tip almost has nothing to do with me. It's sorting out your finances, including your deposit. So what that means is talking to a mortgage broker or a mortgage professional at a bank, my preference is mortgage broker, to make sure that you have a pre-approval, to make sure that you have a very firm understanding of what you can afford, not just from your own sense of what you can afford, but from the sense of like what a lender would let you borrow if you were to buy. The other critical thing about financing with respect to deposit is being liquid and having your funds available at one of the top 5 or big 6, whatever, Canadian banks. So if you were to make an offer and it gets accepted, unless otherwise stated in the offer or the agreement, you need to be able to walk into a bank and get a bank draft for your deposit funds, not your down payment, but your deposit funds within 24 hours of that deal being accepted. If your funds are in investments, if you're with one of those online banks, it may not be automatic that you can get your money within 24 hours. So it's really important that you are pre-approved and that you are liquid. The second tip that I would have for you is timing the market can be very challenging, almost impossible. In my opinion, you should probably just throw it out the window. I think it's most important to buy when the time is right for you, both emotionally and financially. So it just makes sense for you to buy. Don't worry so much about the market timing. Now, if you're looking at, you're emotionally and you're financially ready and the market is just completely bananas. So like February of 2020 or February of 2021, April of 2017, maybe more so March of 2017. Those times were like bananas. And I completely get some buyers kind of looking at it and going, I don't know that I want to get involved with that because there's usually a little bit of a pullback or a slowdown at some point afterwards. I get it. But trying to specifically time the market and time the bottom or whatever the case is, my opinion, not worth it. Buy when you're ready. Now, on that note, tip number 3 is if you are not terribly fussy, if you're fairly flexible with your timing, summer and winter can be good times to look. I want to show you something. So if you look at this chart, this is, you can see in the top left corner right up here, it says sale volume. So that just means like how many transactions are basically happening. And I just mapped out from January to December of 2024. So you had a full complete year. You can see the cycle. Sales start at a relative low in January, peak somewhere in kind of like, anywhere from February to April, May, but typically it's April or May. There's a little bit of a trough through the summer, another kind of secondary peak in the fall, which doesn't reach the heights of the spring, and then a drop off as we move towards the end of the year and get to December. For the same year, here's the graph showing amount of inventory. So again, starting at a relative low in January, we get to a peak for May. There's a trough through the summer, secondary peak in the fall, dropping off as we get towards the end of the year. And here's prices. These are median prices. You can see kind of a similar trend. Here is January. Here's that peak in kind of May, almost June, and then trough down in the summer, come back up for September, and then fall off. So all of those kind of metrics, new listings, how many sales, prices, all follow a very similar trend. And so if you can target the summer or the winter, then you could be in pretty good shape. Now, the only thing you have to be careful of is that sometimes, and 2024 was not one of these years, but sometimes February can be really robust in terms of buyer activity and all that kind of stuff. So you just have to be kind of careful. And if you're working with me, I'll be able to tell you exactly what the dynamics are at the time because I'm constantly working with people. So you can be in tune with what's going on in the market. That's a tip that I would pass along, is that if you've got some flexibility, you could potentially try to time things as far as seasons go. So my 4th tip is try to look past things like bad pictures, clutter, certain cosmetic issues like flooring, or, if the cabinets look like they could use a new kind of coat of paint, or the walls could look like they could use a new coat of paint. Maybe the curb appeal of the home is very poor just from a gardening perspective. Try to focus on the things that cannot change. So that would be the location of the property, location, right? The size of the property, the dimensions of certain things, including layout. It can be very difficult, if not impossible, sometimes just very expensive to change layout. Certainly for a house, for a condo, can't do it for the most part. And light. So, which way of the property faces east, west, north, south, whatever the case is, you cannot change those things. So focus on those things. Try to do your best to look past those cosmetic issues. And the neat thing about this tip is that the cosmetic issues typically do impact a lot of people. That means that those kinds of properties could potentially be overlooked. And that means that they could be opportunities to get at a discount or to negotiate a great purchase price. So definitely try to look past the superficial stuff if you can. My fifth tip is that unfortunately, you probably can't have it all. It's very difficult to achieve all of your your wish list, and there's probably going to have to be a compromise somewhere. What I would do is that for these three things, size, location, and price, you're probably only going to be able to get two. I would pick the two of those three that are complete non-negotiables and then work from there. Now, if your budget or your flexibility with where you're going to be or whatever the case is allows, and you've got, you are able to achieve those three things for the price, then just make your must-haves much more specific. So we must have a certain size backyard, or we must have a certain kind of parking, or whatever the case is. But, you're probably not going to be able to achieve everything that you want. Set your list of must-haves and try to rank them so that you know where you could compromise, so that when you see a particular property, okay, it doesn't have this, but that's pretty low on our priority list, if you will. This property could be really good for us. My last tip, number 6, try to think about the next 5 to 7 years, maybe 5 to 10, not the next 20 to 30. It's very unlikely that the property is going to be your forever home. Again, we're talking to first-time home buyers here. It's more likely that it's going to be a starter home. Again, depends on your budget and where you're buying, but I would try to look at that kind of a little bit more of a shorter time frame than, too far out. The same thing goes for property type. I run into people all the time who completely poo-poo the idea of buying a condo. They have no interest in kind of starting their real estate journey, I guess, if you will, into a condo. Now, for some people, condos just don't make sense. Totally fine. That's not my concern. My concern is that people just kind of dismiss it as an idea when it could be a great way to get into the market. Now, if you look, depending on when you're seeing this video, July 2025, the condo market is a mess, which means it's a great opportunity for buyers. But for anybody who has purchased and is currently owning a condo from, let's say, 2018 to now, prices have been set back to roughly 2018. Your appreciation wiped out. And if you've bought a little bit more recently, you're actually taking a loss in terms of, what you paid for the place 2-3 years ago, whatever the case is. So I get that certain property types come with risk, and condos might come with a little bit more risk than houses, but given market circumstances at the time, condos can be a great way to get into the market. I think they should be considered for sure. But regardless of the property type, think 5 to 10 years. You're not supposed to know everything. That's why I'm here. And I certainly won't profess to know absolutely everything, but I've been in the business 10 years and I've also got that teaching background. And so I think I can do a good job of kind of educating a first-time buyer for sure. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed, if you're feeling like, man, there's so much that I don't know, by all means, look in the description below. There's a link there that you can click. You can book a talk with me, no pressure. We can talk a plan. We can take a look at your budget and your timeline, and whether you're ready in 2 or 3 months or whether you're ready in 12 or 13 months, I'm happy to have a conversation to kind of help you get things started on the right foot. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. I would love to hear, what part of being a first-time homebuyer are you the most stressed about? I want to see if maybe I can alleviate some of that stress before you even get started looking. Thanks for watching. See you next time.